Coming up on Nebraska Stories, wicked rhymes at the largest poetry slam in the Midwest. Insights from a second-generation saddlemaker. A visit to the only Frank Lloyd Wright house in Nebraska. And art with a powerful message.
Sometimes we feel like we are sleepwalking through 18 years of this town.
Rumors telling us who we are.
Waiting to leave.
Waiting to go home.
Waiting to come back.
I just want you guys to really think about, as you go up on stage, I want you to remember, why did you write this poem? What is your favorite line? What are you hoping people get from this poem?
Tonight, it's just your poetry. You're in an empty auditorium, and nobody else matters but you and your words.
Louder Than a Bomb is a youth poetry festival with students from different schools and organizations competing against each other with performance poetry. It's called, slam poetry.
Ogallala is not a place for poetry.
We have one coffee shop that doubles as a Christian bookstore.
You read a poem and then people in the audience hold up scorecards.
We've got a 9.3, a 9.2.
It's basically a gimmick that makes the poet work harder to reach the audience, makes the audience work harder to appreciate the poet. So you end up with a poetry reading that's, got the atmosphere of a basketball game. It's a school year-round program that works with kids on creative writing and self-expression.
You hear the news, North Carolina high school teacher fired for being gay, except for at first there are no headlines.
We encourage people to write poems about anything.
My baby crying would be the proof that I need to know he's here. He's alive. And he needs me.
It's difficult giving it every time and not trying to cry. You relive it every time. But it's a beautiful piece. It's not a beautiful experience, but it's an experience. Not everyone has to go through it, but some can share it.
We get stories about home life.
Sadly for you, my father, my genetic generator, my absent role model, you have lost your trophy.
We get stories about racial problems.
Our heritage is what we see when we look into that mirror.
I'm so proud of who I've grown to be.
Beautiful,
Dark,
black,
and lovely.
Mama says no one can take that from me.
Acceptance problems due to GLBTQ issues. We get these real stories from these kids that are kind of amazing.
We are cosmic phenomena encased in heaps of flesh and bone. The sunshine that is in every living person is our proof that humanity is divine, that it is celestial. Feel the incandescence that dances from your fingertips. Let it intertwine with the blaze of others.
We get the funny poems, the bizarre poems that these kids who are just showing off their creativity and really making something beautiful.
Give me the plains where the warm breeze and the summer rains with the sun of dead leaves feels like home.
It's about writing something meaningful, throwing it out there, and basking in the reaction. And the best part of something like Louder Than a Bomb is that the kids, they want to win, but when a good poem goes up, it's every team cheering. Skutt Catholic was in the finals last year. This year, it looked like they weren't going to make it, but they pulled it together.
And this poem is titled Choke.
They are a group of really strong writers.
In the 6th grade, it should have been easy to counteract a bully's quips with my own bombardment of words, but instead, I sat there as she called me fat.
Any possible comebacks tangling themselves in a knot in my throat like loose kite strings. They didn't come undone until I had found somewhere to cry.
It was the first time I learned what my own words tasted like when I forced them down.
The way they weave their words together is just gorgeous.
Can you hear all of our being move?
Ogallala is a first-year team, and so for them to have made it this far is kind of remarkable. They've been hard to coach. We've had some coaches helping them through Skype mainly, and now here they are in finals.
Whatever we are, whatever we'll be, Ogallala is now. Ogallala has a voice. Ogallala is here. We are here, ready to be heard.
Ready for poetry.
Waverly's been in the finals the last few years. They are always a strong team and always a little bit goofy.
My first kiss was comparably anticlimactic. He came at me open-mouthed.
This year they got a little bit more of really serious poems, but with these undercurrents of humor that they just surprise you with.
We're writing to inform you what you're writing isn't real. It's fairy tale idealism, and we're tired of reading it. Let us give you an idea for a character.
Make her a hockey player.
Photographer.
Make her trans.
Vulnerable. Make her suffer from mental illness. Beautiful and radiant and not defined by a boy.
Make her real.
Duchenne is an amazing team. They won the first year, but this year they were struggling to get a team together. Here they are in finals.
She liked verbs.
She oozed them.
An orchestra of action words.
The teacher who sponsored us at Duchenne for the first 4 years of the program is a woman named Kate Summer, and she passed away this past year.
She was the first one
Who taught me how to write.
I was raw, inky,
A mess.
and she made me legible.
She made all of us realize that writing
Is the only remedy for sleepless eyelids
and stress
And futures too far ahead to be found.
I think a lot of times we discount, especially here, oh, it's teenagers writing poetry. No, these folks are going to be published someday. The level of the writing is so good. The points are not the point is the poetry, because so many teams could have been here on finals.
Visions of bringing change when I get older, saving this place before it's over. Anger replace tears when I'm alone. Forget the world for a moment, allow my thoughts to take me home.
And that's why I'm taking notes, because we stand on a white canvas. Though light skin is my color, black is my heart from the actions of others.
There was one school that really stood out for us, that really showed the spirit of Louder Than a Bomb.
Omaha Northwest.
We not only pride ourselves in the way we express our art, but also we like to listen to others' arts and also congratulate them on being brave and getting up there and expressing themselves.
9.3 and a 9.7. First place we got
Being able to take it this far is just, it's amazing, knowing that we get to leave it all out there like that. Watching it come into what I always wanted it to be was just an amazing experience.
You work with really, really, really amazing people, and you realize that a poem is kind of a living thing. Like, it's always changing. It changes depending on who's in the room. That's the best thing about slam poetry, right? Is you're not performing for a group of people that have PhDs. You're trying to make the people in the audience feel something.
All I wanted to do is be a cowboy. Part of it by making saddles. My folks started this business in 1942 here in Kearney, and I was born in 47, and they kept me in a saddle box when I was a baby. So I grew up in the shop. When I was 12 years old, I built my first saddle with the help of my dad. I tried to count up and keep track of what my dad and I have made up to date, as close as I can come with him and I combined, we've made right at 3,000. And I've probably made at least 1,800 of those. But as far as the tooling, he would only use one flour all the time, and Mom did everything different every project she worked on, and that's what I do. Actually, my mom was way better than my dad, and she's the one that taught me how to do that. The idea of tooling like a saddle is it'll last longer because the leather is compressed, and it will last longer than a plain saddle will. If you're going to be on a horse a lot, say if you want to be a cowboy, you need a saddle, and preferably one that's not going to hurt your horse's back and not going to hurt you. And my dad pretty well taught me that. He said, if you're not happy with the job, don't show it to the customer. Throw it under the bench and start over. My wife is a great quality control person. She really looks at every stitch and makes sure, because she always says, we're professionals. We can't turn out stuff that looks half done.
We have sent saddles to Canada, Germany, Switzerland, Brazil, Japan, England. We were surprised when we first started getting orders from foreign countries. People are absolutely in love with anything to do Western in the United States. With an actual saddle, I do all of the finish work. That means rubbing down the edges, because after he cuts them, they're kind of rough, and I rub them down and make them nice and smooth.
She is probably one of the best finish people in the business. I've never seen anybody match her. So she's a lot of help.
I make them shiny and pretty. Maybe that's the way that I should say it.
There's times at night I'll wake up and get to thinking about something. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll come out here and at least draw it out so I don't forget it.
Yes, he is an artist, even if he is humble about it. He's an artist in other mediums if he had time to pursue it.
There are the people that go out in the morning when it's still dark, take a halter with them or a catch rope and catch their horse that's snorting at them and saddle them up and take off just as the sun's coming up. Those are celebrities to me. I like to build stuff for working cowboys.
Perhaps it's fitting that on a street named after the architect of Nebraska's unicameral system, Senator George Norris, sits a house designed by a man whose name is synonymous with modern architecture, Frank Lloyd Wright. Located in McCook, it is the first and only building in Nebraska designed by the famous architect. It's over 100 years old and known by the name of the couple who built it, Harvey and Elizabeth Sutton. In the 1880s, Harvey Sutton was a musician in the Sells Brothers Circus Band. The circus traveled the nation and made stops in Nebraska. According to Sutton family history, Harvey left the band to live in Ainsworth and married a local girl, Elizabeth Munson, in 1886. He began a new career as a jeweler and also formed the Sutton Band. Harvey's band became so popular, it caught the attention of some McCook community members.
They recruited him from Ainsworth, got him down there to lead the band and build the jewelry store, and he led the Burlington Band.
Which was a big deal on the Burlington Railroad. He was also the head timekeeper.
Yeah,
what do you call that?
He was the head watchmaker for Burlington. Or anyway, that's where they had all their timepieces serviced, was in his store.
The Suttons were prosperous, active community members, and in the early 1900s, they were considering home improvements.
There was a friend of great-grandma's that had planned on building a Frank Lloyd Wright house, having him design her house, and then she changed her mind. But great-grandma liked what she saw in the plans and liked the designs, and so she decided that that was what she wanted to do.
In 1901, the Ladies' Home Journal published a series of modern home plans by a groundbreaking American architect named Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright was hailed for designing buildings that were in harmony with nature. In 1905, the Suttons commissioned Wright to design their new home. And even though she only had a basic education, Elizabeth took on the task of corresponding with Wright.
Yes, she was educated, but when you read her letters, misspellings, her sentence structure, things like that, you can tell she just had the rudimentary education that a girl would have had back in 18-whatever. She knew what she wanted, and she
was going to get it.
Couldn't get it.
And that's one of the reasons why we have the letters, is because what we think is she wrote her letters longhand in what she wanted to say, and then I think she recopied them to send and cleaned up whatever needed to be fixed.
The letters between Elizabeth and Frank Lloyd Wright provide a window into their relationship.
In the information when we were researching this, says apparently in about September of 1907, Wright had the audacity to ask for payment for the work that had already been done by himself and his office. The exorbitant fee was $300. Granny Cricket was quick to respond, and she said that a house on the ground, not on paper, and we're not spending more than $5,000. That her husband is not writing a check for it, that they just have a hole in the ground and he's disgusted with it.
Elizabeth also took on the role of contractor. Following Wright's build book, she ordered the building materials, hired all the subcontractors, and supervised their work. Without consulting him, she made small modifications to Wright's designs. And in 1908, construction on the Sutton house was complete.
Great-grandma did not follow his designs exactly as he designed. He came to visit one time. He always wore a cape, and according to my father, said that he came in and he took one look around and said it was an abomination of his work, and threw his cape over and left, and that was it.
In the 1930s, a house fire destroyed a portion of the home.
When the fire went through, it burned the beams off that held the porch up.
Wright's trademark cantilevered porch wasn't the only loss.
The house burned during Prohibition. As the whiskey bottles blew up in the attic, the tears really rolled. That was according to my aunt.
Elizabeth and Harvey lived in their home until their deaths in 1952. Their home passed to their son, the grandfather of Harv, Patty, and Stephanie.
That's where we all went for Christmas. Uncles, aunts, cousins, we all stayed in the house.
In 1960, the Sutton house was put up for sale and purchased by a local doctor, who turned it into a small hospital. The doctor enclosed the property with a concrete fence and installed several fish ponds. When he retired, the Sutton house, now the shadow of Frank Lloyd Wright's vision, went up for sale where it sat on the market so long, the doctor considered demolishing it.
Don and Mary Poor bought the house from the doctor when it was a clinic.
In 1978, at the 11th hour, the Sutton house was purchased by a McCook couple, Don and Mary Poor.
And it was all chopped up into all these little rooms and all these little hallways, and it had an operating room and an x-ray room, and I'm not sure how many people would have had the vision at that point to what this house had been and could be. And Don and Mary stepped in, bought the house, and with their son Tom, worked on the restoration for 10 years. So I really think they need to be credited with saving the house.
Though the Poors saved the Sutton house from demolition and turned it back into a home, it was Janet and Van Carell who restored it to Frank Lloyd Wright's vision.
When we came on board, there was another owner in between. It was never about us owning the house or what we could do. It was always about the house. It's an important historical part of this community, and it needed to be saved and restored, and we were just fortunate enough to be able to do that.
The Carells bought the Sutton house in the early 1990s, but the inspiration to restore their home came several years later while touring Frank Lloyd Wright buildings in Chicago.
For me, certainly, it was like, oh, this really is a bigger deal than maybe I even realized. This house is really significant. We also contracted with an architect back there whose name is John Thorpe, and he's an expert on Frank Lloyd Wright. He came out to the house shortly after we got back and looked over the project and agreed to be our architect. So we worked with the experts because we wanted to do it right, correctly right, you know. So.
Construction began in May of 1999.
As far as the construction part of it, she was heavily involved in that, and I was at work most of the time.
His business was being totally renovated and built onto at the same time, so our life was construction. We lived here as the house was restored. All the people that we used on the restoration were McCook people, McCook businesses, because we felt it was important to the community that we use local people rather than bring people in for the restoration.
The house was stripped down to the studs and rebuilt from the inside out. 7,200 feet of quarter-sawn oak installed, the stained glass windows based on the original designs remade, and the beams that held the cantilevered porch roof replaced.
This house had those big columns holding up the front porch roof after the fire in the 30s. And so this was all tarped off, and the days, it was kind of like an unveiling, and they dropped the tarp off the cantilever, and it was like, that is awesome. You know, it was just amazing to see that roof just hang there.
The single most memorable moment for me would be when the restoration was complete. The last nail was driven in September of 2001.
The restoration's completion also brought some unexpected attention.
Some ladies were peering in the window. They were up like this, peering in the dining room window. And so I just walked out the back door and I walked around and I said, "Can I help you?" Oh, they about jumped out of their skin. I said, "You mean you live here?" And I said, "Yeah, really." So there's a lot of fun stories like that, and you meet a lot of neat people.
But I would say all in all, people are very respectful.
Yeah.
They don't, they respect your privacy.
100 years after Wright designed the Sutton house, it's still a home that works for a modern family.
Well, there are just so many unique features. You're just surrounded by comfort, in my opinion, and there's so many places that you can rest in the evening, read, or whatever you want to do. You can go to a different location in the house every night for several nights, and you're never in the same spot, so you don't get bored. There's plenty of interesting things to appreciate, look at, understand.
It's just the whole philosophy he had about bringing the outside in and living with the environment in and out. It really is a kind of an amazing way to live.
After all their work to restore the Sutton house, the Carells have taken steps to ensure its future.
We've made arrangements so that the house in perpetuity will be in its present form. With this effort, we need to preserve this. And so that's pretty well taken care of.
I'm very grateful that we were able to do this, that Van got on board with my crazy ideas. Yeah, I'm a very lucky person.
A flock of ceramic birds. Delicate beauty, an expression of freedom, says their creator. It's art with a powerful message.
The number is estimated to be about 2,000 known victims of sex trafficking in Nebraska, and those are reported cases. That is horrific. Each of the birds, there are 2,000 of them, each of the birds represents a victim of sex trafficking.
2,000 souls let University of Nebraska at Omaha art student Elisa Wolcott combine work for a sculpture class with an issue she's passionate about.
This is a project that is raising awareness about sex trafficking in Nebraska in tandem with raising money for a nonprofit here in Omaha to help support them and to help support victims of trafficking in our local area. I knew I wanted a non-traditional location for the piece. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to be a public piece to raise awareness, and that wasn't going to be as effective in a traditional gallery setting.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for bags from Dallas, flight 448, there's some bags.
It took weeks of tedious work to create 2,000 plus sparrow-like birds in 3 sizes.
I ended up making 15 molds, and then I could cast 24 at a time. Then I would come in and do that like anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day of casting birds. So yeah, it was quite the process.
Sales of the birds raised money for a sex trafficking victims shelter, but Wolcott hopes the impact of 2,000 souls is more than that.
You know, like ultimately it's like, let's eradicate this from our area, because not on my turf. That's like the biggest dream, is like, this is gonna be over. I refuse to see this happen anymore. It's just gotta stop. It's just gotta stop.
Watch our stories online at netnebraska.org/Nebraska Stories, and go to Facebook to like us and leave a comment. Join the Nebraska Stories conversation. Nebraska Stories is funded by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation, the Nebraska Office of Highway Safety, the Nebraska Tourism Commission, First Nebraska Bank, and the Brownville Fine Arts Association. Sustained funding for arts coverage is provided by the H. Lee and Carol Gedler Charitable Fund.